With the release of NieR Automata Become as Gods Edition for the Xbox One, a new portion of gamers who haven't yet played it on the PS4 or PC will get their chance to experience this one-of-a-kind game. The new edition includes all the game's DLC, including cosmetic items, access to new side quests including the Colosseum battles, and 4K resolution. My review will be based on the PS4 edition, which I was able to pick up on sale for about $25 a few months ago. After completing and investing more than 40 hours into the game, I can say without a doubt that this is my favorite Platinum Games title and one of the best action role-playing games in the entire genre. NieR Automata's combat is often compared to Bayonetta or Metal Gear Revengeance, also developed by Platinum Games, or the fast-paced combat of games like Devil May Cry. I believe that Automata is better than those games I just mentioned because of the game's story, original soundtrack, and unique narrative. I would give this game a 9.5 out of 10, and in this review I will be breaking down the different arguments from other sites or publications that gave it anything less. First off, let's start with the lowest scores. The Financial Post gave the game a 5.0 out of 10, and GameCritics.com gave it an unfavorable review, which is converted to 65 out of 100 on Metacritic. The reviewer for the Financial Post didn't say how long he took to play through the first time, but mentioned he didn't want to start a 25-hour plus game all over again. So I'm assuming that's how much time he put in. On my first playthrough, playing on the harder difficulty for most of the game, and completing a lot, probably about half of the side quests, I completed the game in about 13 hours. I don't know what he was doing since he hated the side quests, environments, and even combat. Not only did he dislike the integration of side-scrolling and shooter elements, he didn't like the combat because it was not diverse. Anyone experimenting with the weapons, plug-in chips, and pods can see that this combat system has a ton of depth. GameCritics.com didn't give a score out of 100, but its review was unfavorable. His main argument is that the second playthrough of the game, when you control 9S, is unnecessary and the game should be condensed to about half its length, so about 20 instead of 40 hours to complete. This reviewer genuinely didn't enjoy the game the first time through, and as a result the second playthrough he began only accentuated these aspects that he saw as flaws. In my opinion, I like the unique approach that the repeating storyline provided. It's true that only playing the game the first time through, the characters seem shallow and the ending is underwhelming. But after playing the game the second time, you get more details of the story and added scenes that help you see things from another perspective. It's like watching a great movie for the second time and picking up the small details after you know the ending. Also, going into the length of the game, I'm used to longer games with 30 to 60 hours worth of gameplay, so 10 or so are always used to build the plot and characters anyway. Imagine trying to review a game like Skyrim only after 10 hours of gameplay. Many people are automatically turned off when they hear that you must replay the game. I like to think of it as different acts, as you will get to continue your save and get to carry over your progress anyway. The enemies will be a higher level so you don't just fly through the games the subsequent times. The next 3 reviews come from more popular sites with scores around an 8 out of 10, and since I strongly believe that this game deserves better than that, I will go over their arguments as well. Starting with Game Informer that gave Automata a 7.75 out of 10. First, the reviewer mentions that the combat isn't all that engaging, even though you're obtaining new weapons, chips, and pods. I understand this argument, which mainly is a result of normal difficulty generally being too easy. Most battles can be won by button mashing, especially if you outlevel the enemies by completing side quests. However, after playing on hard difficulty, I experimented more with combinations between light versus heavy weapons, close versus far-ranged weapons, and the special attacks for the pods. The plug-in chip system also gives you access to new ways to take on your enemies, ranging from life recovery, defense, damage, and even side effects such as shockwave, that gives your sword strikes projectiles. Together with upgrading chips to utilize the least amount of space so you can equip more and higher ranked ones, paired with item buffs that give you temporary benefits during combat, the system is extremely engaging for those that want a challenge. The next argument is that the progression system doesn't offer much depth. Unlike other traditional games where leveling up gives you a tangible stat boost, many of Automata's progression comes from collecting and upgrading plug-in chips. There is some farming and collecting of resources to upgrade these chips, But as mentioned, I think that it has a lot of depth and allows you to control to customize your character to your playstyle while also feeling stronger with each upgrade. The last argument here also touches on the repetitiveness of the story as being its downfall. I feel like the game picked up during the second playthrough with the added scenes and got even better from there. For those that are worried, I don't think it's that bad. It's nothing on the level of Bravely Default, which is a pinnacle of repetition in my mind. The next review and the site I used to frequent often is Game Revolution that gave it a 4 out of 5. The reviewer acknowledges that the game is great and even considered it for Game of the Year, but one flaw really stood out to them. This flaw is the poor difficulty scaling from normal to hard mode. This is something that I actually agree with, but don't think that it should be brought down 20% just for this. The article points out how normal difficulty is way too easy, which leads to button mashing, but those wanting more of a challenge and utilizing more of what the game has to offer is hit with a huge difficulty spike, often resulting in being one or two shotted by certain attacks. In my first playthrough, I had to change the difficulty from hard back to normal, which I eventually left it on because I encountered this same wall. Even though all enemy attacks can be avoided and dodged, I think that hard difficulty is better suited for subsequent playthroughs because you will need to know enemy attack patterns, what chips to best utilize for the fight, as well as the use of items, which is a lot to manage for new players, or even players on their second playthrough. In my opinion, normal mode is just too easy and could have bridged the gap to hard difficulty. The next site also gave it an 8 out of 10, and this review is from Polygon. Other than the easy difficulty holding your hand too much, one point they bring up in this review that can be an issue for some people is that the maps and environments often have invisible walls that block your way. There are buildings that look like you can run through, or terrain you can jump or climb upon, but you are left often testing it out to your disappointment. This is an annoyance which can lead to frustration as the movement is fluid and fast-paced, so this ends up slowing things down. I thought of this as a minor nuisance and didn't significantly detract from my experience, and not something that should bring down the score that significantly. The next two reviews are higher and more aligned to what I think the game deserves, but let's take a look at what EGM and IGN had to say about its flaws. EGM, or Electronic Gaming Monthly, gave the game an 8.5 out of 10. One criticism on the game is that the world can feel underdeveloped or not as fleshed out. While they went for an open world feel, the world just doesn't feel big and accessible. I understand this point of view, and if you're looking for an open world like the Witcher series, you'll be sorely disappointed. Working with a smaller budget and shorter development cycle compared to other AAA titles, I think this aesthetic fits the game well. Considering the game's plot, buildings and infrastructure are crumbling after centuries of humans no longer inhabiting the Earth. By no means is this an indie title, but the semi-open world is effective at creating an environment that feels desolate and uninhabited. Another point EGM brings up, which I saw in other reviews, is the tedious or generic side quests that are offered by NPCs during the game. For me personally, I thought the side quests were interesting and actually a positive for the game. While many do boil down to kill certain enemies or locate certain objects, I feel that many concluded in a satisfying way that invoked the same thought-provoking ideas of the main story. Some side quests are genuinely funny and endearing, like finding and escorting a machine's missing sister, while others make you feel conflicted, such as when you are tasked to take out machines or hostile androids. But after more information is revealed, you are left questioning your own sense of purpose and morality. Many of the side quests are given through text, but that doesn't mean it's any less important to the main story. It's most likely due to the production budget and the time mentioned earlier. The last review I will look at is from IGN, probably one of the most popular sites for gaming content, which gave Automata a 8.9 out of 10. While most of their review praised it for its features and style, it focused on the convoluted story and development of the characters that led to less payoff in the story. This is a valid criticism that many players will have, but I think this comes down to players' taste in games. If you enjoyed other Japanese games like Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts that are often described as also having a convoluted story, then you would actually see the story and how it connects to previous NieR and Drakengard series as a draw to the game. I'm in this category, and I spent a good week after completing the game reading and watching a lot of story synopses to make sure I didn't miss anything. Not to say that the story has holes that require you to go out of the game, but the story is ripe for theory crafting and interpretation. The second argument about the characters and the needing to get into the second playthrough to begin feeling connected to them is also another aspect of the game that I appreciated for being different. It is true that the first playthrough feels superficial, but it makes the end result even more impactful. By the end, or final ending of the game, you feel for the struggle and development that each of the main characters goes through. It's amazing how the same scenes you play through on the first time invoke completely different emotions by the end of the game. The English voice actors did a great job of conveying the state of mind each character was in. As you can tell by now, I think that this game is a masterpiece, and if a sequel is indeed in the works, I can't wait to see where they take this franchise. I would have given this a perfect 10, but I do agree that it does have flaws after reading so many reviews. However, I feel the story, combat, style, the characters, original soundtrack, and overall themes of the game make up for any of these downsides. I didn't even go into the original soundtrack, but this game has one of the best music soundtracks I've ever heard in a game. If you have not yet played the game, you owe it to yourself to play and complete NieR Automata. Like the lowest score reflects, playing the game after seeing the first ending is only a fraction of what the game is about. The game has a total of 26 endings for each letter of the alphabet, but most lead to an immediate game over screen for failing to complete the main objective. I know reviews are meant to be subjective, so let me know what you would give the game and what review you would agree with the most. Thanks for watching and see you all again soon. And remember, glory to mankind.